Hey, Daniel here, Mr. Cuervo Racing. Um, Today we're talking about setting deck height or piston height. Um, my motor of choice has always been Raptor 700. Um, Setting the deck height is not as simple as just taking parts out of the box and putting them together. Whether you're buying from online, an eBay store, any of the race shops or any of the specialty shops. As parts come out of the box, there is a variance between batches of parts sometimes. Cylinder height can change. Piston pin height can change between pistons, as well as gasket thickness. So this is something that's widely overlooked. I've seen a lot of motors come in that are either way too loose or way too tight, and stuff put together that is quite wrong. And what we're talking about here is the difference in height between the top of the piston here and the top of the cylinder. Most commonly it's measured at the wrist pin center along here through the center. I prefer to measure it on the intake side and on the exhaust side because this piston does rock up and down a little bit. So I can see what my tightest point is going to be. Now, this cylinder here I have mocked up with no base gasket on it. I do have dowel pins in there. And basically I can measure the thickness of the gasket and add in that number to my clearance measurement. The reason I mock them up with dowel pins in and no gasket is to also make sure the cylinder sits all the way down. A lot of times the bottom of the cylinder will hit inside the case, or the cylinder is not machined correctly where it won't fit flat into the bore, or the dowel pin holes are not machined deep enough to let the cylinder sit all the way down, and that's when you run into a lot of base gasket leaking issues. So I use a what you call a deck bridge with a dial indicator on it. I'm going to zero it out first. We're just measuring across flat surface here, and we can see we're pretty well zeroed out. I know it's a little blurry to see, but now we're going to slide that dial indicator over onto the piston, and we can see we're right there about 7 thousandths below the height of the cylinder. So as we drop in, it's negative about 7 thousandths. I can push on this piston and see where it's going to rock to. So that's our lowest spot right there. We're about 12 thou at the lowest, and if I push on the opposite side, we're about, say about 6. So our tightest measurement right now between the piston and the head would be 6 thousandths. Depending on how thick your head gasket is going to determine what you need to do as far as base gasket. This particular cylinder is a Chinese cylinder, and some of them come a little tall out of the box. So this setup with no base gasket on it right now, that piston's down in the hole 6 thou on the high side, and we're going to run a 40 thousandths thick head gasket. So that gives me 46 thou plus a base gasket. Base gasket OEM's about 9 thou. So that pushes it well up in the range, plenty of clearance there. If this piston were coming out of the hole without a base gasket, 10 thou, then that would be pretty much zero deck with a factory gasket. I'm okay with running that on a 1055 bore. Different people have different measurements there. So in this particular motor, it's going to be set up just a touch loose, which is fine. It's a play motor. lots of theories and different things that go along with setting what you call squish, the difference between the piston and the head. But in this application, a little bit extra room isn't going to kill it by any means. We're not pushing this one to the ragged edge. So little info there for you guys. If you don't have a deck bridge, you can take a standard filler gauge, kind of lay it across like that across the cylinder, and measure the difference there with a with another filler gauge. That you can just take this off here and take a filler gauge out and take that measurement that way. It's a lot easier with the deck bridge, but this is fully get you real close or the same type of measurements. So make sure your piston isn't coming up out of the cylinder too far. It's a real common issue. I don't know what guys are thinking, but they're not checking that. Pistons are hitting heads. That'll damage the piston, damage the rod, break cases, blow head gaskets, all kinds of stuff. So put it together right. Measure twice. Put it together once. All right. Thank you.